I caught my husband kissing another woman, and the world didn't end, it just caught fire. The Golden Mirage Casino pulsed around me like a living thing, its neon veins bleeding red and gold across the Las Vegas Strip on a sticky March night in 2025. I stood in the hallway outside Victor's office, my sequined red dress clinging to me like a second skin, the last remnant of the burlesque queen I'd been a decade ago. The air buzzed with the electric hum of slot machines, their jangling bells a siren song for suckers 3 vodkas deep, but I barely heard it. My ears rang with a different sound, a soft, throaty moan slipping through the crack of the door I hadn't meant to open. My hand froze on the knob, clutching a velvet box with a $1,000 Rolex inside, a birthday gift for the man I'd built my life around, Victor Russo. My Victor. Except now, as I pushed that door wider, he wasn't mine anymore. The office hit me like a slap. Dim light from a brass desk lamp, the faint tang of his overpriced bourbon lingering in the air, and there he was, all 6'2" of polished arrogance leaning over his desk. His salt and pepper hair caught the glow, his tailored suit screaming money, but it was her that stopped my breath. Sasha Lopez. The Golden Mirage's lounge singer, 25 and built like a showgirl's dream, sprawled across the desk in a black dress that barely covered her intent. Her lips were locked on his, her fingers tangled in his collar, and his hand slid up her thigh with a familiarity that gutted me. 10 years of marriage, a house in Summerlin worth $2 million. Every late-night shimmy I danced to fund his rise. And this was where it landed. Him rewriting our story with a cheap encore act. The Rolex hit the floor, a dull crack splitting the silence. They jolted apart, and Victor's dark eyes met mine, cool and unblinking, like I was a fly he'd swat later. Sasha giggled, a high, sharp sound that grated against my skull, and brushed her platinum hair back with a smirk that said she'd already won. "Max," Victor drawled, his voice sliding over me like oil. "You're early. Thought you'd be fussing over table settings for the party." He didn't even stand, just leaned back in his chair, one hand still resting on her knee. My throat burned, but I swallowed it down, forcing my lips into a tight, trembling grin. "Sorry to crash the rehearsal, Vic. Should I call the preacher now or wait for the honeymoon?" The words tasted like venom, and I liked it. Inside, though, my chest was a furnace, every heartbeat stoking a rage I hadn't known I could feel. Sasha slid off the desk, smoothing her dress with a slow, deliberate grace, her green eyes flicking over me like I was a faded poster on a back-alley wall. I wanted to claw that look off her face, rip the smugness right out of her, but Victor was already moving. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed my elbow, and pulled me into the hall, the door clicking shut behind us. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on his face, and I saw it then. No guilt, no panic, just a cold, calculated calm. "Listen up, Max," he said, his voice dropping low, the tone he used to charm whales into dropping $1 million at the tables. "You're finished. Sasha's the new blood this place needs. I've signed the Summerlin house over to her, cleaned out the joint account, $2 million gone. Walk away quiet or make a fuss and lose whatever scraps you've got left. Your move." His words slammed into me, each one a brick tearing down the life I'd built. That house wasn't just a deed. It was my blood, my sweat, the nights I'd danced until my heels bled and my lungs burned, all to keep us afloat while he played king of the casino. Now he'd handed it to her, erased me like I was nothing. I jerked my arm free, nails biting into my palms until I felt the sting of blood. "You think I'll just crawl out of here? Let you waltz off with my life?" My voice was steel, but inside, I was reeling. Pieces of our past flashing like a busted slot machine. The late nights he'd called work, the Reno trips with no receipts, the way he'd stopped touching me like I mattered. It was all there, glaring, and I'd been too damn blind to see it. Victor laughed, a short barking sound that bounced off the walls. "What are you going to do, Max? Cry to a lawyer? Shimmy your way back into my bed? You're a has-been, sweetheart. Your act's been off the marquee for years." He turned back toward the door, dismissing me like I was a fired dealer caught palming chips. My vision blurred, not with tears, but with a fury so hot it felt like I'd combust. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I spun on my stilettos, the sharp click echoing down the hall, and stormed out of the golden mirage into the thick electric night. The strip sprawled ahead, 4.2 miles of glitter and grit, the air heavy with heat and the sour bite of exhaust. I slid into my Mustang, its leather seats cracked and peeling, and gripped the wheel until my hands shook. The engine growled as I fired it up, and I stared at the casino's glowing sign, its promise of riches taunting me. I'd been Maxine Carver, the woman who'd owned Vegas with a wink and a twirl, who'd traded sequins for a ring and thought it meant something. Now, I was nothing to him but a ghost in a red dress, a punchline to his new show. But I wasn't done, not even close. "Victor Russo," I hissed, my voice a blade cutting through the roar. "You just lit the match, and I'm gonna burn your whole damn kingdom down." I floored the gas, tires screaming against the asphalt, and peeled onto Sahara Avenue, the Vegas skyline blurring in my rear view. Whatever came next, I'd make him pay. And in this city, payback was a game I knew how to win. The Mustang's engine growled as I tore down Sahara Avenue, the Vegas skyline shrinking in my rear view like a bad dream I couldn't shake. My hands still shook on the wheel, the sting of Victor's betrayal searing through me hotter than the desert sun at noon. $2 million, my house, my life, handed over to Sasha Lopez like a tip tossed to a cocktail waitress. The golden mirage's neon glow faded behind me, but its shadow clung, a taunting reminder of everything I'd lost in that office. I wasn't crying, though. Tears were for suckers who folded at the first bad hand, and I'd played worse odds than this on stages across Vegas. By the time I hit the cracked asphalt of Boulder Highway, my rage had hardened into something sharp, something I could use. Victor thought he'd buried me. He didn't know I was already digging his grave. I pulled into the gravel lot of the Double Down Saloon, a dive bar so grimy even the roaches had standards. The neon sign flickered, half dead, buzzing like a fly caught in a web. It was 12:30 a.m. and the place was a haze of stale beer and cigarette burns, the kind of joint where secrets spilled faster than whiskey. I needed Eddie Malone. If anyone knew the dirt under Victor's polished shoes, it was him. I spotted him at the bar, hunched over a glass of Jim Beam, his black dealer's vest still crisp from a shift at the Golden Mirage. Eddie was 40, lean as a switchblade, with hands that could shuffle a deck blind and eyes that saw more than he ever let on. We went back 15 years, to the days I'd ruled the Stardust stage and he'd slipped me extra chips to keep the wolves at bay. He looked up as I slid onto the stool beside him, my red dress catching the dim light like a flare. "You look like hell, Max," he said, voice rough as sandpaper. "Victor again?" I snatched his glass, downed the whiskey in one burning gulp, and slammed it on the bar. Caught him with Sasha Lopez on his desk, like it's opening night and I'm the understudy they forgot to fire. "He's given her the Summerlin house, Eddie. $2 million, my money, gone." Eddie's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching under his stubble, but he didn't flinch. He never did. "That son of a bitch," he muttered, pouring me another shot from the bottle. "I've been waiting for him to screw you over. Just didn't think he'd be this stupid about it." I leaned closer, the whiskey loosening my tongue. "Tell me you've got something on him. You're in that casino every night, dealing to his high rollers. What's he hiding?" Eddie's eyes flicked to the door, then back to me, low and steady. "Victor's not just cheating on you, Max. He's washing cash for Tony Scarpa's crew out of Henderson. Drug money, big stacks, running through the Golden Mirage like it's a laundromat. If he's got proof, it's in that safe in his office." My pulse kicked up, a wild drumbeat in my chest. Tony Scarpa was a name that echoed in Vegas's underbelly, a kingpin who'd slit throats over a spilled drink. If Victor was tangled with him, this wasn't just personal anymore. It was a jackpot of leverage. "The safe," I repeated, mind racing. "How do I get in?" Eddie smirked, a rare crack in his stone face. "You don't. Not without the code. But I'd bet my last chip he's dumb enough to use something obvious. Keep your eyes open, Max. And don't do anything I wouldn't." I grinned, the first real one all night. That leaves me plenty of room, doesn't it? 2 nights later, I was back at the Golden Mirage, but not as Maxine Rousseau, the discarded wife. I'd traded the red dress for a black wig, oversized sunglasses, and a leather jacket I'd dug out of a thrift bin on Charleston Boulevard. The lounge was packed, a sea of sequins and cigar smoke, as Sasha took the stage. Her voice slithered through the room, smooth and sultry, wrapping around the crowd like velvet chains. I hated admitting it, but she was good. Too good. I slid into a booth near the bar, nursing a gin and tonic, watching her sway under the spotlight Victor had handed her. My plan was simple. Get her drunk, get her talking. When her set ended, I waved her over with a smile so fake it hurt. "You were incredible up there," I said, pushing a martini across the table. "Victor's lucky to have you lighting up his stage," Sasha preened, tossing her hair as she sipped the drink. "He says I'm his muse," she purred, her words already slurring from the pre-show cocktails. "Better than the last one, anyway." I bit back the urge to smash the glass in her face and leaned in, all honey and venom. "Oh, he's got big plans for you, huh? Must feel like a fairy tale." She giggled, downing half the martini in one go. "Big plans. Yeah, he's got this safe in his office, says it's our future. Locked up tight, codes his birthday, 15th December 82. Smart, right?" My heart stopped, then raced like a greyhound off the line. December 15, 1982. The idiot hadn't even bothered to mix it up. I kept my face neutral, swirling my drink. "Real smart," I said, voice dripping with mock awe. "Sounds like a man who knows how to protect what's his." Sasha nodded, oblivious, and I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I stared at my reflection, the wig crooked, my eyes wild. "Got you, Vic," I whispered, tasting victory on my tongue. The next afternoon, I was parked 3 blocks from the Golden Mirage in my Mustang, scoping the entrance through a pair of cheap binoculars I'd snagged at a pawn shop. Victor's Bentley rolled out at 2 p.m., headed north, probably for one of his meetings. I was about to tail him when a sharp rap on my window jolted me upright. A woman stood there, mid-30s, short silver hair glinting in the sun, her badge catching the light. "Detective Lila Hayes, Las Vegas PD." She didn't wait for an invite, sliding into the passenger seat like she owned it. "Maxine Carver," she said, her voice clipped and cool. "I've been watching you watch Victor Rousseau. I know what he did to you, and I know what he's doing in that casino. Rumor is, you're pissed enough to help me." I glared, gripping the wheel. "I'm not your snitch, lady." She didn't. "I'm not asking you to snitch. I'm asking you to bait him. He's washing money for Scarpa, and I need proof. Help me, and I'll make sure you get that house back, maybe more. Your call." I studied her, the hard lines of her face, the quiet fire in her eyes. She wasn't bluffing. Part of me wanted to tell her to shove it. I didn't need a cop to fight my battles. But another part, the part that remembered Eddie's words about that safe, saw the play. "Fine," I said, voice low. "But I'm not doing this your way. I'm doing it mine." Lila nodded, a ghost of a smile tugging at her lips. Wouldn't expect anything less. She stepped out, leaving the door ajar, and I watched her vanish into the heat haze. My mind churned, pieces clicking into place. The safe, the code, Scarpa. Victor wasn't just a cheating bastard. He was a crook playing with fire, and I had the match. That night, back in my shitty apartment off Sahara, I paced the cracked linoleum, Eddie's whiskey still warm in my veins. I'd spent 10 years as Victor's shadow, propping him up while he climbed. Now I'd tear him down, brick by brick. The safe was my key, but it wasn't enough to just crack it. I needed him to feel it, to lose everything in front of the city he thought he owned. Poker, the game he bragged he'd never lost. I'd learned the tricks back in my dancing days, bluffing drunks out of their last dollar. Eddie could coach me, Lila could back me, and Sasha had already handed me the ace. I stopped pacing, staring at the peeling wallpaper, a plan hardening in my gut. "You want to show, Victor?" I muttered, a grin splitting my face. "I'll give you one they'll talk about till the strip goes dark." The cracked linoleum of my apartment still echoed with my pacing as the plan solidified, a wildfire blazing through my veins. Victor wanted to play King of Vegas, but I was about to flip the table and take his crown. 3 nights after Lila's visit, I stood in the Golden Mirage's back lot, the desert air thick with heat and the faint hum of the strip's chaos 2 blocks away. Victor was in Reno, or so his secretary had chirped when I'd called pretending to be a client. Perfect. I wore black jeans, a hoodie pulled low, and a pair of gloves I'd swiped from a gas station on Tropicana Avenue. Eddie waited by the service entrance, his dealer's vest swapped for a plain jacket, a flashlight flickering in his hand. "You sure about this, Max?" he asked, his voice a low rasp over the distant clatter of slot machines. I nodded, my pulse a jackhammer. "I've never been sure. Let's crack that bastard safe and bury him with it." We slipped inside, the service halls a maze of flickering fluorescents and stale cigarette stink. Eddie knew the layout like a card-sharp nose a deck, guiding me past the kitchens where dishwashers cursed in Spanish and up a narrow stairwell to Victor's office. The door clicked open with a spare key he'd lifted from a janitor's cart weeks ago. Inside, the room was just as I'd left it, bourbon scent, brass lamp, that damn desk where Sasha had perched like a vulture, my eyes locked on the safe, a sleek black box tucked behind a fake panel in the wall. I punched in the code Sasha had spilled, 15th December, 82, my fingers trembling as the lock whirred and clicked. The door swung open, and I sucked in a breath. Stacks of cash, neatly banded, sat beside a ledger scribbled with numbers that didn't add up. Photos of Victor shaking hands with Tony Scarpa, a hulking figure with a scar slicing his cheek, peeked out from an envelope. And there, in a plastic sleeve, a USB drive. I plugged it into Victor's laptop, Eddie hovering over my shoulder, and hit play. The screen flickered to life, Victor's voice, smug and clear, bragging about hiring a hitman to take out a rival casino owner 2 years back. "Holy hell," Eddie whispered. "This isn't just dirt, Max. It's a damn death sentence." I yanked the USB free, pocketing it with the photos while Eddie stuffed the ledger into his jacket. "Not yet," I said, my grin sharp as a blade. "First, I want him to lose everything he loves right where he thinks he's untouchable." We slipped out as fast as we'd come, the Golden Mirage oblivious to the bomb I'd just armed. The next morning I called Victor from a burner phone, voice steady despite the adrenaline still pumping. "Hey, Vic, how about a game? Poker? Texas Hold'em? Tomorrow night at the Mirage? You win, I leave Vegas for good. I win, you sign over the house in the casino. What do you say?" He laughed, that barking sound I hated, and I could picture his smirk through the line. "You're on, Max. I'll crush you like the has-been you are. Be there at 9. He hung up, and I tossed the phone into a dumpster on Flamingo Road, already tasting the moment I'd wipe that grin off his face. Friday night, the Golden Mirage buzzed like a beehive on fire. The main floor was a circus of sequined suits, cigar smoke, and champagne flutes, every eye locked on the poker table at the center. Velvet ropes cordoned it off, a spotlight bathing the green felt in harsh white. Victor strutted in at 9:05, all swagger and tailored silk. Sasha trailing behind in a silver dress that screamed trophy. The crowd parted for him, murmurs rippling as he took his seat across from me. I wore my old burlesque costume, red sequins blazing, a middle finger to his has-been jab. Eddie stood at the dealer's spot, his face a mask of calm, but I caught the glint in his eye. He'd rigged the deck, marked the cards with a system we'd perfected back in the Stardust days. "Let's play," Victor said, tossing a stack of chips worth 50 grand into the pot. I matched it, my smile tight. "Oh, we're playing, Vic." All the way. The game started slow, a dance of bluffs and bets, the crowd leaning in as chips piled up. Victor was good, his poker face honed from years of fleecing whales, but I'd danced for drunks meaner than him. Eddie dealt smooth, sliding me a pair of tens on the third hand while Victor smirked over a pair of aces. The pot grew, $5 million in chips by the final round. The air so thick with tension I could have cut it with a knife. Victor went all in, pushing his stack forward, his voice dripping with confidence. "Time to fold, Max. You're out of your league." I leaned back, twirling a chip between my fingers, then shoved my pile in. "Call." Eddie flipped the river card, a 10 of spades, and I laid down my hand. 3 tens. Victor's aces hit the table, and his smirk vanished as the crowd erupted, cheers and gasps drowning out his snarl. "You cheated!" he roared, slamming a fist on the felt. I stood, snatching the table's mic, my voice booming over the chaos. "Cheated? Let's talk about cheatin', Vic." I held up the USB, plugging it into the casino's AV system with a flick of my wrist. The giant screens flared, Victor's smug face filling them as his recorded voice bragged about murder and money laundering. The room went dead silent, then exploded into whispers. Sasha's face drained white, her heels clicking as she bolted for the exit. Victor lunged across the table, grabbing for me, but I stepped back, laughing cold and sharp. "What's wrong, Vic? Don't like the encore?" He froze, eyes wild as the crowd turned on him, phones out, filming his downfall. I'd stripped him bare in front of Vegas, his kingdom crumbling under the weight of his own filth. Then the doors crashed open, and Detective Lila Hayes stormed in, SWAT team in tow, their boots thundering on the marble floor. She flashed her badge, voice cutting through the din. "Victor Russo? You're under arrest for money laundering, conspiracy, and murder." 2 officers grabbed him, cuffing his wrists as he thrashed, spitting curses. "You set me up, you bitch," he screamed, glaring at me. I stepped close enough to smell his fear under the cologne, and whispered, "No, Vic, you set yourself up. I just dealt the hand." Lila caught my eye as they dragged him out, her nod sharp. "Nice play, Max," she said, low enough for only me to hear, "but don't think this clears you." She turned away, and I watched Victor vanish through the doors, the crowd still buzzing like flies on a corpse. I stood there, the mic heavy in my hand, the spotlight hot on my skin. The Golden Mirage was mine now, the house too, but it wasn't over, not yet. Victor's scream echoed in my head, a promise of payback from a man who'd lost everything. I dropped the mic, its thud ringing out, and walked off the floor, Eddie at my side. The game was won, but the war, that was just heating up. The Golden Mirage's main floor was still a madhouse as I stepped off the poker table, the mic's final thud fading into the roar of the crowd. Victor's screams echoed down the hall as Lila's SWAT team hauled him out, his tailored suit wrinkled and his face twisted with rage. I could still feel the heat of the spotlight on my skin, the weight of every eye in the room boring into me, but I didn't flinch. Eddie fell into step beside me, his dealer's calm cracked just enough to show a flicker of pride. "You did it, Max," he said, voice rough but steady. "You burned him down." I shot him a sideways grin, my sequin dress catching the light like a warning flare. "Yeah, but the ashes are still hot. Let's get out of here before they start asking questions I don't feel like answering." We slipped through a side exit, the cool night air hitting me like a slap after the casino's smoky haze. The strip glittered in the distance, 4.2 miles of neon and noise, but for once it felt like mine. By morning, the news hit Vegas like a sandstorm. Victor Russo, Golden Mirage kingpin, arrested for money laundering, conspiracy, and murder. The headlines screamed it across every TV and every dive bar, from Fremont Street to Henderson. I sat in my Mustang, parked outside a diner on Boulder Highway, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug as the radio crackled with details. The USB had done its job. The cops had raided his accounts, seized his assets, and found enough dirt to lock him up for 20 years minimum. The Summerlin house, that $2 million dream he'd tried to steal, was back in my name, deed signed over by a judge who didn't care for Victor's sob story. The Golden Mirage was mine too, won fair and square in that poker game, though I'd bet my last chip the gaming commission would come sniffing soon. Sasha Lopez? Gone. Word was she'd packed her silver dress and bolted for L.A., leaving nothing but a trail of cheap perfume and unpaid bar tabs. I couldn't help but smirk into my coffee. Good riddance, I muttered, tasting the bitter brew and the sweeter sting of victory. But it wasn't all clean cuts and champagne. 2 days later, I was back at the Mirage, standing in Victor's old office, the safe still gaping like a wound. The place felt different now, hollow without his swagger filling it. I ran my fingers over the desk, remembering Sasha perched there, and kicked it hard enough to dent the wood. Eddie leaned against the doorframe, watching me with those quiet eyes. "You okay, Max?" he asked, softer than usual. I shrugged, shoving my hands into my jeans. "Better than him. Heard from a guy at county lockup that Tony Scarpa's put a $1,000,000 bounty on Victor's head. Guess washing money wasn't enough to keep the wolves off his back." Eddie whistled low. "Karma's a mean bitch." I nodded, staring out the window at the strip's glow. "Yeah, and she's got my number on speed dial." Lila showed up that afternoon, her silver hair glinting under the office lights as she dropped a thick file on the desk. "You're a piece of work, Carver," she said, her voice clipped but not unkind. "That stunt with the poker game? Ballsy. Reckless. But it worked. Scarpa's crew is scrambling and we've got warrants out for half his lieutenants." She paused, crossing her arms. "Problem is, you're on their radar now. They don't like loose ends, and you're a hell of a thread to pull. I can put you in witness protection, get you out of Vegas. New name, new life, say the word." I leaned back in Victor's chair, feet up on the desk, and met her gaze. "You think I'd run after all this? I just took down a kingpin in front of 500 people, Lila. I'm not hiding in some podunk town knitting scarves." She smirked, just a twitch, and slid the file closer. "Your funeral, but if you change your mind, you know where to find me." Eddie lingered after she left, his silence heavier than usual. "You could sell this place, Max," he said finally, nodding at the casino beyond the door. "Take the cash, start over somewhere quiet. You don't need this heat." I stood, crossing to the window, the city sprawling below like a glittering trap. Sell out? Run? After everything I'd fought for, the house, the Mirage, the look on Victor's face when the cuffs clicked, it was mine, earned in blood and bluff. But Lila's words gnawed at me. Scarpa wasn't Victor. He was a shark, and I'd just chummed the water. I turned to Eddie, my voice steady. "I'm not running, Ed. This is my stage now, but I'm not keeping it like Victor did. No dirty money, no backroom deals. We're rebuilding it, you and me." His eyes softened, a rare crack in his armor. "You sure?" I grinned, fierce and real. "Damn sure." That night, I stood on the casino floor, the chaos of the game still buzzing in my bones. The Golden Mirage was mine, a kingdom of light and shadow, and I'd won it with my own hands. Victor was gone, Sasha was dust, and Scarpa could come if he dared. I wasn't the same Max who'd walked in here with a Rolex and a broken heart. I was something new, something sharper, The war wasn't over, but this battle, this one was mine. The golden mirage hummed beneath my feet as I stood on its polished floor that night, the echoes of Victor's downfall still whispering through the slots and roulette wheels. The air was thick with cigar smoke and the clink of chips, but it felt different now. Lighter, like the weight of his shadow had finally lifted. I'd won. The house in Summerlin, the casino, the right to stand here and call it mine. It was all real, etched in ink and blood. Eddie lingered nearby, his quiet presence a steady anchor as workers hauled out Victor's gaudy desk, replacing it with a sleek bar I'd ordered from a shop on Spring Mountain Road. The crowd buzzed, oblivious to the war I'd fought, their laughter a strange music after weeks of silence and rage. I caught my reflection in a mirrored pillar, red sequins faded to jeans and a leather jacket, and saw someone new staring back. Not the burlesque queen, not Victor's wife, but Max Carver, survivor, owner, queen of her own damn stage. A week later, I sat on the Summerlin house's back patio, the desert sun dipping low over the Red Rock Canyon in the distance. The place was mine again, its wide windows and smooth stucco walls a testament to every dollar I'd danced for, every night I'd believed in us. I sipped a cheap beer from a can, the cold aluminum grounding me as I watched the sky bleed orange and pink. Eddie had stayed on at the Mirage, running the floor with a cool head and a sharper eye, turning my vision into reality. We'd stripped out the backroom deals, fired Victor's crooked crew, and booked a lineup of singers and dancers who'd been tossed aside by this city's grind. The golden mirage wasn't his anymore. It was ours. A beacon for the broken, the bold, the ones Vegas tried to chew up and spit out. I'd renamed it Maxine's Mirage that morning, the new sign going up in blazing neon, and the first cheers from the crowd had hit me harder than any spotlight ever did. Lila's warning still rattled in my skull, though. Tony Scarpa's shadow loomed, a dark promise of trouble I couldn't ignore. I'd heard whispers on the strip. His crew was regrouping, and my name was on their lips. But I wasn't running. Not now, not ever. I'd faced Victor down in front of 500 people, turned his empire to dust, and walked away with the keys. If Scarpa wanted a fight, he'd get one, and I'd play it my way, same as always. I stood, tossing the empty can into the recycle bin, and looked out at the city twinkling below. "You thought you'd break me, Vic," I said to the wind, my voice low and fierce. "But this is my Vegas now." The strip glowed, a ribbon of light and chaos, and I smiled, real and raw. I'd survived the game, rewritten the rules, and the next hand,